Hey, Lauren. Hey, Tony.
How's Kentucky today?
This is the first day in the last 6 that we've not had rain.
I was gonna say, I hope I'm not taking you away from planting tonight.
No, I don't think. I would love to be. I don't like much, but I like about 20 acres probably.
Yeah,
But we got rain Saturday. I would have been finished in just a little while, but I didn't even make it to the far end before I had to pick up.
yeah.
Actually, I probably would have planted it had I not been doing a egg launch trial.
Evening, Brent. How's southern or southwest Iowa, I guess? You're on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Sorry
Yep,
about that.
loud and clear.
Yep. Yeah, we got rains last week, so we're sitting pretty good. We were on the other end. We were on the dry end up till last week. So the rains were good, welcome for us.
Hey, Brent.
I've been pretty fortunate right where I'm at, but you don't have to go too far. I'd say there's 5 to 6 inches difference just in about 5 miles.
Yeah, it was a very spotty shower.
Like I said, we got done side dressing corn last week, and they got caught up spraying everything. I think they finished Sunday morning, finished spraying one last batch, and sit here and coast because I don't have any cereal crops or anything all summer here. So I keep telling everyone I'm going to have this summer off, but it ain't working out that way so far.
I've got a question. I obviously Murray State had quite a run in the College World Series, and I got to go to Omaha.
Yep.
And got to drive, so I went through obviously Kansas City, up that way, and up through the corner of Iowa, and actually stayed in Council Bluffs. But I was totally surprised at the number of the ratio of beans to corn. I would say
You're
it was
bad.
75-25. Is that normal?
75 corn and 25 beans, you
No,
mean?
75 beans, I'd say.
No, it should be closer to 50-50 around the area.
Yeah. I was just surprised. I mean, it looked to me like it was very, very heavy beans.
Unless Missouri has a lot more beans, but Southwest Iowa here is pretty much 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would say up here in northeast corner, we're probably 70-30 normally corn heavy, but this year we're probably 80-20, I would say, if not higher. So,
Wow.
but
80-20. That's, I didn't realize it was that much corn.
I don't see many beans around here. Well, like son-in-law, usually they have 4,000 or 5,000 acres of beans, and I think I heard the other day they only have 1,000.
Hmm.
So I thought they had a few more, but because they replanted them all twice, I think, and ended up being a nice long spring for them. But on the bean planters, I mean, the corn planters were done well before the bean planters this year, which is not normal. But evening, Drew.
I'm glad the report didn't show all that.
Oh, well, I don't know if we're recording. Yeah, we're probably recording, but this will not go public. So, like I said, usually I shut the recording off, but I'll let it run tonight, and then we'll just edit stuff out. Like I said, if anybody's going to talk about something they don't want out there, period, say the word, we'll stop recording. But for Dave's sake, I do want to, towards the end, we'll probably, Dave, have a section where you kind of tell us what you're all doing and all that. But the general format here is pretty loose. That evening, Joe. Look at that sign.
Good evening.
Look at that sign.
Yeah, it works.
How's things up in northern Iowa tonight?
Drying out a bit. I'm working on a Hagee, which that's just normal.
Hey, I did find another nozzle body for you if you need.
Really?
I think it's in one of the tractors if you need. So.
Okay. Well, I'm moving over to wide drops anyway. That's the mission for the week.
So
Yeah, I like
April,
those
Jonathan,
signs.
Joel.
I was just talking with Pete yesterday, and I don't know if he'd seen that or what, but he recognized and said that we needed some signs to put out in our trials down here. So that's probably where he got that idea.
Right along State Highway 9.
I think that is one of last year's signs. I've been getting out the new ones. The new ones are actually better. I hate to say it that way, but oh, do I have a picture I can share of the new ones? I just put one up Saturday there, or last Thursday, I guess it was. Evening, Jacob. Somebody's got the happy hour down pat. Now he shuts the camera off. Evening, Bob. Welcome aboard. Jonathan, how's Kentucky tonight?
We're good. We got 4/10 of rain last night. The sun's out now and corn's tasseling, so it's hard to ask for much better.
Herbicide all done, nitrogen all done.
We got all the nitrogen on. We'll be fungiciding here soon, and then of course got the double crops planted last week, so we got a little bit before we have to get back in them. And I hope as we were talking today at another farm mate, and I said we're done the first time at least. Now I hope we don't have to go back and redo anything, but so far everything looks pretty good. So,
how's Jacob's corner of the world tonight?
Well, I'm sitting down at Lake of the Ozarks, so it's just fantastic.
That's why you had the special hat on today. I was gonna say your cornfield ain't that bad, is it? So
We're all good. We're all good. Enjoying a little family getaway for the 4th.
Yep. Evening, Drew. You wanna pop on, or are you in a place where you can talk? I've seen you're on the town the way it looks. So.
Yeah, but how's my audio? Can you hear me?
Very good.
Hey, everybody. Looking forward to hearing this presentation. I met some of you. I'm Drew. I work for Rodale Institute.
Evening, Carl. I see you made her on tonight. Everything getting caught up there in northern Iowa? Might be a spot where he can't talk, but Tony, I'll kind of let you take it over here. If you want to,
I think we got Joel Reddick on here too from down our way. I see him. Joel, you good?
I'm south of Birmingham on a job for Regenified. So I am traveling. So if I lose you, I do apologize. I'll join us back as soon as I can.
Yep, no worries.
Right, good job.
Like I said, pretty loose format here, Tony. If you want to take a little bit, purpose of tonight's call, I seen last week you guys did the Kentucky Wave, had the canola trial, correct?
Yes.
Dave with Salin 247 is the one that installed the plot. And the biggest reason I wanted you guys on is I thought it was pretty inspiring what you guys all pulled off down there. And, you know, that kind of fits the whole mindset of what we're supposed to be working towards and trying to figure out, helping farmers figure some of this out together. So if you want to take it away and introduce the program.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity. Just personally, I've been part of the 25 Farmer Network that preceded Ag Launch back about 2 or 3 regenerations ago, back to Memphis Bioworks and some of those type things. But so I've been a part of that as a farmer and spent about 34.5 years at Murray State, and with the last 25 being the Dean of Agriculture there. So I've really seen a lot of innovation and tried to be part of a lot of innovation. You might find it interesting when hemp was legalized in the Farm Bill, first the pilot in 2014. Murray State and my farm manager and I planted the first legal industrial hemp, or agricultural hemp, as I called it, in the nation, May 12, 2014. And then when Senator McConnell and they got it legalized through USDA, we continued to be a leader in that, and they still growing it there, and we're still growing it. I'm still growing it as a farmer, and we have a company that we recruited that moved here from China that does hemp wood. So if you see any of our advertisements about hemp wood, they also are partially funded through the United Soybean Board, because they not only use fiber hemp, but they use soybean glue to glue it together. So we've been working with a lot of specialty crops through the years. This particular area of Kentucky is known for dark tobacco, which is smokeless tobacco. So if you draw a 100-mile circle around my house here, you comprise about 99% of the U.S. is dark tobacco, and consequently probably about 90% of the world's. So all those companies are dependent, but it's been such a downfall in that we've looked for other crops. So after retirement, I kind of took a job as a regional facilitator of what's called Wave Ag. And WAVE stands for Western Kentucky Alliance for a Vibrant Economy. And it's the 4 westernmost counties in Kentucky, which all are part of what we call the river counties. So when any of that crop goes south towards New Orleans, it goes right by all 4 of those counties, or touches a part of at least 3 and probably all 4 of them as it goes down that Mississippi River. So when y'all have a lot of rain up there, y'all kind of send it our way, and we have to migrate through that. And as many this year, the bottoms have been pretty wet and pretty constant. So this WAVE group started as an economic development group, but they spun off a Wave Ag group, and we have one event each year, Wave Ag Day. This year it's July 31st, and we have about $65,000 or $70,000 worth of partners that put into that, and we invest that throughout the year then in activities to support those river counties. They're very small, they're very rural, they're very far from Frankfort and the state capital, and on the very western end of the state of the Commonwealth. And as Philip Bean says, what does WAVE stand for? And he says, we're down here on this end of the state waving and say, hey, we matter. And that's about the best illustration that I can give. So when I took the job, we had 3 pillars. One was Farmer Network. In my former work with Ag Launch, we formed a partnership with Ag Launch and working with young farmers. We have a program in Kentucky called the Adult Agriculture Education and Young Farmer Association. And previously, these river counties had 3 adult ag teachers, and with retirements and budget cuts, they did not have any. And we were able to partner with Wave Ag to bring that back. So part of my position is funded by Wave, and part is by the Kentucky Community and Technical College System to work with young farmers. And we got 2 of those on here, Jonathan and Joel, that have been really active in that, as well as other ag organizations. So our partnership with, and then the other pillars were agribusiness and in youth. We support the 4-H and FFA in our region and invest some of the funds back in that. But one of the main focuses with our Ag Launch affiliation has been the Farmer Innovation Network. As started by Ag Launch. We had 9 farmers that joined that. And we've had, I think, 5 or 6 that have become part of Ag Launch LLC as a part of that. And we were able to, through some of the, belief in the system, encourage some of our young farmers to start with some trials. Last summer, we don't have a funding mechanism in Kentucky like Tennessee does. So when I do an Ag Launch trial on my farm, the companies bill me, and then I in turn bill the Tennessee Ag Enhancement Program, and they reimburse the company for the trial. A lot of Dave's trials that he did in our region was reimbursed by that. So Kentucky doesn't have that. But last year we started very minimally with Spornado, and Jonathan and Joel and 2 other young farmers had a Spornado trial where they gathered data and tried to help Christine and that group to get some baseline data and feedback. And that kind of got our feet wet. And then this year we worked out some funding and just basically through Wave Ag to bring Dave down last fall. I'm going to let Jonathan tell, if you would, in just a second, take over and talk about the canola and the growth of canola in our area, because Jonathan was growing canola before canola was cool. So he's been experimenting that with canola and rapeseed. And Jonathan and Joel probably won't brag on themselves, but I'll brag on these two young farmers. Jonathan is actually now president of the Kentucky Soybean Association. And was one of our young farmers of the year a couple years ago, but he's a graduate of our program at Murray State, and his Spring Hill Farms is his grandfather was Jerry Peary, and I don't y'all if y'all ever met Mr. Jerry or not, but he won the conservation award through the American Soybean Association several years ago, and is very well known for conservation. And then Joel Reddick is part of Reddick Farms. Three, at least I know 3 generations that are still involved in that now, with his dad and his granddad. And they are the Leopold Award winner in Kentucky. So they have a long history in conservation too, but they've been very willing to go along with us. And just to give you a brief overview, we've experimented with some canola in this area for a good long while, but Pioneer and Corteva, along with Bunge, had a joint effort last year. We had 5,000 acres of canola, according to their information, in our area last year in our region. And this year we had 37,000 acres, and they could have had another 30,000 acres if they could have wanted to expand that fast. And then next year they're looking for 140,000. So I picked up a term down in Memphis at the Ag Launch LLC meeting, somebody called wheat poverty grass. And that's been a pretty good name for it in our area, in addition to test weight problems and low market prices, and maybe some yield issues and big docks. We even had a deer turd problem last year where they rejected a lot of it for the wheat went down, and it had deer poop in it. So this is a good opportunity when wheat's down that canola has risen. And Jonathan, I'll let you take over and talk about your perspective from the canola, your past, and what you did this year. Then I'll come back and I'll summarize what we did with the trials.
Sounds good. Well, for everybody, I haven't met most of you, but I'm Jonathan Reynolds down in far west Kentucky, and I farm with my wife and our 2 sons, and just trying to make a living. We're all row crops down here, and so, like Dr. Brandon was saying, I've been playing with canola and rapeseed for the last several years. This is my 5th crop. Canola made a breakthrough probably 20 years ago in our area with a startup company. I don't even remember the name of it, but long story short, they found out the hard way. If you don't keep that stuff in the bin and condition, you can go bankrupt quick, and that's what happened. And so we had a lot of guys that got their feet wet way back when, and then got burnt because it took them 3 or 4 years to get paid for their crop. And so that was a really big turnoff in our area. And so here about 5 years ago, I was approached by Purdue Ag Business, and they were wanting to do a rapeseed program, and felt like that they were a little bit more consistent, being a larger company, well established. And so we gave it a shot and grew it for 4 years, and we kind of got we got excited the first year because we had really good yield, good crop prices on it, and things went great. And we had a couple of years there with different weather conditions that set the yield back some after that, but it was still worth it from a profitability standpoint to at least try it. And so when Bunge and Chevron last year decided to start this program, I sat the first year out because I was already committed to the other program, but I decided to give it a shot this year. And like I said, we've noticed for our area, it's predominantly rolling hills, so there's a lot of corn, wheat, double crop soybean rotation in the area. So they're having to compete against wheat acres. But last year, I think, from what I was told, was the worst wheat year that a lot of guys have had in a long time. They had good yield, but the test weight and the dockages were so bad that they basically gave it away. And so they were looking for something else. And so with this canola program coming online, it's been really good for our area and for our farmers. I know a lot of guys, I've heard from several people that this crop this summer that we just harvested is probably what's going to keep them going this year, to keep them from violent bankruptcy. So we're thankful for opportunities like that. And what we like about it too on our farm is it's cheaper to raise than wheat. I can use my planter instead of having to tie my cover crop drill up in the fall when we're planting it. And then it adds another crop to the mix. It does a really good job helping our soil out. It's amazing just the tilth and just how fluffy it makes the top few inches of our soil after we harvest that stuff. And then planting soybeans into it behind it is a dream. I mean, it's night and day difference compared to planting beans behind wheat stubble. And so that's what we really like about it as well. Plus, on a typical year, we try to pull it off about a week to 2 weeks earlier than wheat. So normally in our area, guys are cutting wheat the 10th to 15th of June. So when they'll start. Ideally, with canola, you can desiccate it the last week of May and harvest first week of June. So, you're getting it off that much quicker. But weather this year kept us from doing that. Everybody seemed to be cutting it and the wheat all at the same time. But along with all of that, that's kind of where our experience with Dave last year was really interesting, because the challenge is when we're planting this stuff, they want it planted around the 15th of September. And so we're trying to, run a combine, get grain out of the field, get corn out, and then trying to get that thing started as quick as we can. And so we just don't have enough help. And that's where the autonomous planter really seems to be a tool that we could use in the long run to be able to alleviate some of those issues just with manpower. Because the canola seed is so small, you can fill the boxes up on that thing and run all day, and have it even running in the field that you're in or right beside you, and so you can keep tabs on it. And so that we really, really are excited about that. I think I just saw a question pop up here. I'm gonna try to get to them. I'm just rambling, so if y'all have anything, stop me. Don't worry about it. Yes, so crop insurance. That we got a written agreement with our RMA. For several counties in our area, I think a couple counties in Tennessee and maybe a couple in Southern Illinois. And so the T yields that they start with are not great, but we're hoping to get that fixed a little bit. That's the one downside to the canola versus the rapeseed that I've been growing, because rapeseed, for some reason, they allowed me to take some counties that are farther away in Kentucky that had good T yields, or a good baseline, I guess, and I was able to use that. And so the insurance on it was a little bit better. But what we like about the canola from a risk standpoint is it seems like all the risk is up front. So getting it established seems to be the hardest thing in the world to do on that crop. Is if you can get it planted, get enough rain to get it germinated without getting it too big in the fall and then winter killing. If survive the winter, you're pretty much golden after that. And so all you've got in it is your seed, insurance cost, and then if you do any kind of pre-emerge herbicide, we opted to just spray some Roundup ahead of the planter just to clean up anything that was out there. And then I think I came back with one pass of clethodim, and that was it. And it does a good enough job in our area that it can compete against any kind of winter annuals or stuff like that. So we really don't have to worry about grasses. And so that's what we like about it, is you're not out a whole lot of money at the beginning. And for me, I had an issue a couple years ago where it winter killed. So we just opted to take the money off the insurance, not insure our full season beans, because it's dang near impossible for us to get a claim on beans unless it's just a complete D4 or D5 drought. And so we opted to take that risk, not insure the beans for the second crop, and planted them in April, and they did fine. And so that was that's what we like about it. Versus with wheat, you get it established, which is easy. You feed it. It looks great all the way until May, and then if it doesn't stop raining in May, all your money's down the drain. And so that's what we like about the canola versus the wheat. So
could you follow through on a rotation then? I see Jacob had another question about but I want to back up. What would you actually be planting canola after and stuff like that?
So we're 50-50 corn and soybeans. And so what I'll do is I'll take about half of my corn acres and put the canola behind it. And so basically that splits my bean acre every year. I've got, half of my bean crops full season, half the bean crops double crops. And what I like too is we'll do a lot of seed bean production on my double crops, and that works really good as well. So just to add another premium to it. So, and
Yeah.
ideally, they have talked like in a perfect world to kind of, keep the rotation going. Ideally, you would want to rotate your winter crop. So corn, canola, double crop bean, and then do corn, wheat, double crop bean is ideal. Otherwise, what they generally recommend is to not put canola on the same acre once every 3 years or something like that. So it's kind of a weird rotation. You got to pick. I've never had a problem, but we've never gone back to the same field real quick afterwards. I'm not sure. I haven't heard yet really a major reason why you can't do it. But that's one thing that we have heard a little bit of, that was generally their recommendation. So,
and I'll have to supplement, Jonathan, you may be able to help me on the figure, or Joel. This is all fueled by the fact that Bunge and Chevron is building a plant in southern Louisiana on the river. How many billion?
Many, many, many billions.
Yeah.
I think it's 55 billion or something like that they're building.
Yeah.
So what this is all going to, they're crushing this canola and they're going to make renewable diesel fuel to send to California. That's the whole market for this. So right now, this last year's crop and then the crop we just harvested is getting shipped to Europe right now because the plant's not up. I think their goal is to have it running Q1 of 2026. So this crop that we're going to plant this fall should be the first that they're able to crush in Louisiana. And so I guess they say that it's harder to switch back and forth with the current crush plants they've got. They can't go from beans to canola really efficiently. So this one's going to be mainly canola, but I think the way they're building it, the way I understood it, was it could crush beans as well. I guess they're kind of planning for that. But it all goes back to RVOs. I know for some of the guys that may have seen the last couple of weeks, they came out with some new RVO obligations that are recommended for 2026 onward. And so that was really good news for soybeans and canola. And so we're excited about that. We're really hoping that actually becomes a reality and gets put into effect. And if it does, then that could be huge for the market. And Bunge, that's the thing for them too. They buy a lot of beans in our area because Cairo is just right up the road and a huge crush plant there for soybeans. So their goal is to be making renewable fuels with this stuff as much as they can. So.
Hey,
So
John,
that'll lead us into talking about the trials, if we can. Do you have something, Lauren?
I was just going to ask, Jonathan kind of mentioned the winter hardiness. How big of concern is that for you? I know we've been dabbling with some rape, and then camelina would be the two we've been, and Iowa Soybean Association has been pushing them too, I assume for the same destination, I would assume long term.
Yeah. So the only time I've ever had any issues is a dry fall. And really, it's not that it gets too big. I've had more troubles of it not germinating well enough or germinating so late that it dies out. So when I started with the rapeseed company, the prior company, that was the big thing, is they were so worried, don't plant it. They wanted it early, but not too early because they were afraid it would get too big and winter kill. And from what I've seen, the only issues we've had, anything like that, has been a lot farther south than us, down in Tennessee and northern Alabama. They've been trying it, and they've had a lot of problems with that. But for our area, as long as you can get it up and established, we haven't had any issues with it winter killing. And that's what I like too about this program. Pioneer has made it, the seed, affordable, where you kind of almost self-insure by planting enough plants out there that you can guarantee a decent stand. The previous company, I was paying upwards of $65 an acre for like 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of seed. And this that I'm planting now is like $40 to $45 an acre, and I'm putting 3.4 out. So I'm putting 150 to 170% of what I was planting. And we had a beautiful stand this year and had some pretty rough winter. And our winter seems to be January and February, and then somewhat trickles into March at times, but it's always a later winter is when we get really, really cold here, and it seemed to do great. So we haven't had any issues with it yet, other than dry falls where we just don't get enough moisture. So for guys that are irrigating, that's where a lot of people were telling them if they were looking at wheat or canola, put your canola acres on your irrigated farms, and then put wheat on your hills that are dry land. And they, that's a good way to get it established and at least be able to decide which route they want to go. So.
Hey,
So
Tony,
also-
can I ask
Yeah.
Jonathan a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Jonathan, is delivery location at Harvest an issue for you? And so that's question number one. The second is Chevron Bunge going to have more delivery locations over time if they indicated other locations?
So right now, I'm not sure if they're going to get any more. They've got several, and that's my main reason for switching. So the previous company was a lot more particular about cross-pollination with this new canola that's in play in our area. So that was one strike against, that's why I left. But also the other thing is I was delivering to a somewhat more local, it's still farther away, but somewhat local place. And that ADM location in Paducah actually canceled that agreement with the previous company and switched to this Pioneer and Bunge program. And so I would be having to drive, 2.5 hours one way in a semi out of the field trying to haul this stuff because you can't put it in bin. And so, I can't. I don't have the floors for it. But so that's what's nice about this new program is they've partnered with several different locations in our area. And so I've got a terminal just 30 minutes down the road. And actually where they're at, they've got the Riverport location and a CGB location they partner with. And so you can take it to 2 locations right there at the same place. So if one line's long, you can hop out and go to the other one. So pretty nice.
Any other questions?
I did hear that they're going to go to Eddyville next year, Jonathan, on the Tennessee River to try to get over towards Trigg County and Christian County and tag into that more. It's still Western Kentucky, but it's the far side of the region to tap into some other acres that way.
That's in like Kentucky Lake for the guys that know where that's
Yep.
at. So.
Kentucky Lake it's on the lake, really.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, so, you're talking about, we've got all these acres coming, into our location. And as they start branching out with the reach that Bunge has, I would say they're going to add more because I know they've talked about they're really wanting to grow in Southern Illinois, West Tennessee, maybe across into the Boot Hill, Missouri. So I'm sure there's going to be several different places that they're going to try to find terminals for just because, like I said, I don't know of anybody that's trying to bend this stuff right now because we don't have the floors for it. And so everybody's hauling straight out of the field. And so that presents a challenge there. And for people like me, I've got 2 trucks and not enough guys really to keep everything going. It's nice where I can have one guy running 2 trucks and they're just constantly going. And it helps us with harvest logistics a lot. So.
At the rate that they're expanding acres, though, somebody's going to bend something. I'd say next year, because if they go from 37,000 to 140,000, somebody's going to try to put it in the bin somewhere. So we'll find out. We've got a grain bin with a floor, with a real tight mesh floor, and my granddad put canola in it in the 80s, but that floor is not as good as it once was because it's been there since the 80s. So it would mean redoing grain bins and picking them, I guess, taking out the floors and redoing floors. The same floors can hold corn and soybeans. We put beans in that bin every year. So it's multi-purpose. It's not like you'd have to build a bin special for canola exclusively. You can have bigger seeds. You just can't have smaller seeds in that floor.
Well, that brings up a good question. How secure are you guys in these contracts? I mean, Bunge and that should be pretty safe, but long-term vision, is that pretty solid?
So
yeah, I'm pretty bullish.
Right now, what they've been doing is it's what I had with the other company is they were basically doing acre contracts. So you sign up and the price per bushel on no matter how many bushels you make, whether it's 10 or 100. If that was possible. But, basically, up front what you're going to be paid. And then there's an act of God clause as well, so that if something was to happen, you're not held liable or, for anything like that. I have heard through the grapevine that this is probably this coming crop is going to be the last year they do it. At the rate they're expanding, it's becoming such a risk on Bunge's end that they're probably going to turn it loose and basically make it like every other crop, where you're basically marketing it yourself, and they're going to just pay a pretty good basis premium on top of that to try to make it a little more competitive against wheat and things like that. But I'll just say I didn't know about that either. I was wondering how it would go, and I got done delivering. I called the guy and said, "Hey, this is my last load," and he said, "All right, we'll settle up." He called me the next day and dropped a check off at my farm. So, I mean, so far, I've been very pleased with that.
In the future, then, I mean, I know canola's big up in north, but I haven't even paid attention. Are they on the Board of Trade, or what will they be based off at that point?
It's the Canadian market, so it's in Canadian dollars versus, I guess I don't know if it's metric tons or pounds or how that how they're doing that, but it's a lot
Canola's
of
by the 100 weight in Canada.
okay 100 okay.
100
So yeah,
weight.
it's a lot of converting from what I've been told.
Yeah, a lot. It's you got to convert a currency and a volume unit.
Yeah,
And the contract for next year is like 11.25.
11.25, and so that's the thing. So like if you look at it right now on the board, it would probably equate to like $15 or $16 a bushel on the board. So they're building in some cushion there right now because of the risk they're taking by giving us an acre contract. I have been told by my representative there that if they decide to increase the price, especially if this RVO stuff becomes legit, then he's willing to work with us on trying to get those prices brought back up. So we'll just have to see what happens. But again, it's still way more profitable than wheat. I mean, I was looking at my P&L, and I mean, it's like a 24% return right now, and wheat was barely break even, and corn and beans are 2 or 3%, if that, and that's hoping for good yield and decent prices this fall. So so it's a no-brainer for our operation right now.
Quick
Low,
question. Go ahead.
low input on the sense of it loves fertilizer, but we don't have a lot of herbicide cost. You can, the seed cost is cheaper, and so it is a low dollars per acre compared to some other crops like that for what you're being able to generate in revenue. So that's what we like about it.
Harvest is then small wire concaves and that.
I run convex concaves in mine, and I didn't change a thing, and had no problems at all. I actually had a really clean sample, and so I told
You dirtied it up a little.
I did. I told my combine operator dirty it up a little bit because they were like, "Man, this is like super clean." So I was like, "Well, all right then." So we're gonna dirty it up some, and then we could tell. I mean, it's amazing looking at a yield map. You can tell where settings change on the combine. You can tell if you cut it in the morning when it's a little wetter versus in the afternoon when it's super dry on yield. I mean, it's amazing how much it'll fluctuate throughout the day.
It's
Dave,
interesting.
question? Or
Interesting.
go ahead.
Jonathan, sorry.
We'll transition to the trial in just a second, but go ahead, Dave.
How did you put your nitrogen on, Jonathan? Did you split apply it? Did you side dress it, broadcast?
I split. Well, I put 2 tons of chicken litter ahead of the planter, and we've seen in some trials I've done with rapeseed and canola that litter, it really responds to that, and so we like it. And then let's see, we came back, started the very 1st of March, and split applied. Let me see here, how many units. We stream cap everything with a sprayer is how we did it all, and so I got a picture here. We split applied. Where's my? Sorry. Here we go. So I ran 20 gallon of 32% with some a couple other products that one's like a KTS, and one is it's got some more sulfur in it with some humic acid, and then came back with the second pass just a few weeks later and ran 24 gallon of 32% with the same other products. And so we probably could have gotten by, and that's what I talked to my Pioneer guy about earlier. we probably could have gotten by doing one pass, especially with the weather we had this spring, just being so wet. And it took a lot of guys, like they were basically getting done and then turning right back around and starting all over again. So it probably would have paid to just do it one time and be over with. No more than we had. It was fine. We were able to split a ply, no problem. And that's what I've typically done in years past. But I think in a bind, I think just run slower and, crank out the gallons per acre on it. It loves fertilizer, it loves sulfur and potash and nitrogen. So we pour it to it.
I find it interesting, your guys' discussion of the contracting. From what I've seen in the ethanol side and here in Iowa, most producers in Iowa really have never seen a acre contract, total production contract. Some that have done maybe some food grade soybeans have had an introduction to that, but that's, I think, the exception and not the norm. You go out east, Ohio, Indiana, the ethanol plants there are doing total production contracts, buying those acres as well because of the competition that exists given all the end users there and the opportunities to grow a multitude of different crops and products. So it's interesting that that's down your direction as well, to get this going anyway.
Well, and that's the thing, they're competing against wheat, and they really haven't had to compete that hard the last 2 years in our local area because of how the quality issues in the wheat crop. But those acres, there's always going to be somebody that decides they want to stick with wheat and they're going to grow it. But I've heard of multiple people, large guys that have been wheat guys for years, say they're done. I mean, they've seen it for 2 years now, and the canola on the horizon. And so for now, it's a no-brainer. But I think, to your point, after this coming year, I think it'll be the last time they do an acre contract like that, because I think at that point they won't have to worry about competing for it as hard. They'll be able to, let guys decide on their own, and they're probably going to pick the canola over the wheat anyways.
And I didn't catch how wide a rows are you planting that with the planter? Are
So
those split rows 15s or?
No, so I plant everything on 20s, and so that's where I'm a little different compared to most guys. Most people in our area are 30-inch corn, and so there were a lot of guys that are, have been no-tillers for a long time, and they decided to take the opportunity and run a little bit of tillage behind their corn stalks before they planted. It helps get the residue broke down, and it keeps their split row planters from choking up because of all the corn fodder. For me, I'm 100% no-till, and I don't want to work the ground just because of the rolling hills, and it's worked for us. And so being on 20s, what I did is I ran auto path, and I split the row and was able to run right between my corn stalks, and I loved it. We just ran our row cleaners a little bit to part some of the fodder out of the way, and it did fine. And I tell you, Dave, I was amazed. And we'll get to this when we talk about the trial, but I was amazed at his planter's ability to get it in the ground. We were really dry, and that helped some, but he's planting with that thing. I'm running hydraulic downforce and pneumatic row cleaners and pneumatic closing wheels, and he's planting with air downforce. Is it air downforce or hydraulic, Dave?
We use air, yeah.
So air downforce and close row cleaners and just plain closing wheels. And he got the job done even behind 230 bushel corn residue that, had nothing on it except for some litter. And I did run a stalk digester, but, we're planting 2 weeks behind the combine. So it's not like it did a whole lot by that point for planting. So I was amazed at the plot and the stand that it had. And he's running at different row spacings than what I'm used to. So there were some rows right on top of corn root balls, and it still did a good job. So
what depth?
Perfect segue to talk about the trials. And if I had a name to a consultant agency, I might have it'd be BCD, Brandon Connecting the Dots. I made a career out of connecting the dots, and we were on the way to Memphis with Jonathan and Joel and several of our people where Dave was at and demonstrating Salin 24/7, and I had Dave experience. Dave and I go back a couple of years. He'd been on our farm as part of Ag Launch for a trial with his Salin 24/7 autonomous planter, and we had a great trial in no-till wheat stubble. I guess 3 years ago. And then, so we were going on to Memphis, and they was talking about this canola, and I believe it was Jonathan was saying, number one, he's short in the fall with help. So he doesn't really have anybody while he's combining and got one guy in a truck. He doesn't really have anybody that could break loose to plant canola because September the 21st would be maybe an ideal. I think that's when we ran last fall. And so he was interested in it. Plus they kept talking about the residue was a big problem. It almost needed to be a clean field to get a good stand. So we were talking about splitting the middle like Jonathan's doing with his 20-inch row. Well, most everybody's on 30-inch row. So Dave's unit's on 30-inch row. So we thought, well, what about if we tried it? And nobody could tell us any information about whether 30, 20, 15, 10, we just didn't have any experience. So Dave agreed to come, and we worked out a deal. And Dave brought her down from Iowa, and we started on a Monday at Murray State University in a fiber hemp field that was almost clean. Very good place to start. We could see what we were doing, and got it set. He had to zero in his guidance. I think, Dave, if I remember right, you had a dash instead of an underscore or something that threw the guidance off, but he worked through it remarkably, and by the next day had it all squared away. So we went to that field on Monday. We came to my place on Tuesday in Tennessee as part of the TAEP, and we did a canola trial. And I'm going to rate these planting conditions. The fiber hemp, as you can imagine, was pretty much a clean environment with a little residue there. Mine was very, very heavy residue behind 250 bushel corn, nothing done to the stalks. I would have bet money when we finished that, because they had told me that you would not get a stand in residue. I would have bet money that I would have got nothing at my farm. Then we left that same day and went to Jimmy Tosh's, Tosh Pork, Bacon by Gosh, and they actually had rapeseed, and we did a trial there, and I would say it was more in the 150, 175 residue, not near as much residue. You could actually see the rows once you went through. And when Dave did the 10-inch rep, and what we did on each of these reps, we did a 30-inch, a 15-inch, and a 10-inch. And the way he did that was he did the 30-inch rows. It was a 30-inch planter. Then when he went to the 15, he come back and he split the middles. And then when he went to the 10s, he moved over 10 inches and went over it 3 times. We just wanted to try that, and Dave was willing to do that with us. And so when we got done with mine, you couldn't even, in the 10-inch, you couldn't see anything but fodder on the ground. It was no soil showing. And at Tosh's, you could see the rows. We got rained out at the end of it there. And you got to remember the whole context, because I think this is important. People had not been able to get a stand, so we were planting early, and we were planting with a known hurricane coming in on Friday that was expected to, and in fact did drop 6 inches of rain. So we were hustling, flipping a coin whether or not this would work. We left there. We went to Jonathan's. Jonathan had what I called almost a perfect planting environment. It had enough residue, but it wasn't. He had that, as he said, decomposing a little bit on there, and it had been harvested a pretty good while, and it was strict no-till. Then we went to Joel's, and Joel, with their conservation, had done some min-till on theirs. It was not heavy disc or anything, but it was an ideal planting environment, but less residue, granted. We left there, and we went the next day to a canola following bean field. Well, first of all, before he went there, he went to Sikeston, Missouri, to their Chamber of Commerce, and we used to call it a bed of ashes. They had a sandy soil that they had disked, and it had no residue on it whatsoever. And Dave planted into that. And then we went to Colin Cooper's in Ballard County, and they had bean residue. So you think about all those different planting environments. If you'd asked me to bet, I would have said Sikeston would have had the best stand based on what I knew. Sikeston would have had the best. The bean stubble would have been second. Joel's would have been third. Jonathan's would have been fourth. Tosh's would have been fifth, and mine would have been the absolute worst, and the hemp field would have been right in the middle. I personally believe the hurricane 6 inches of rain that everybody had threw all that out of the water.
Yeah.
By stand count, my stand was the best of any of them. We had probably, Dave, I believe our population on 30-inch rows was like 210,000.
Something like that. I don't have it in front of me here.
It was so it was pretty heavy on 30-inch row. I did a stand count and I had 180,000. And they say 50% would be excellent. So, I mean, we had almost every seed come up. Then Tosh's was a problem, but we laid that on. It takes rape a little bit longer to come up. Jonathan, I think, had the most ideal stand across all of it. Joel's was a little bit less. Colin Cooper in the bean ground, they had to replant every acre except what Dave did. And the trial came up. And Sykeston, Missouri had nothing, no stand whatsoever. I don't think they ever had a plant come up. They had, again, 6 inches of rain. So we followed that through. The KCTCS allowed and gave some funding for us since they thought this was such a novel trial. And I was able to work with the producers and get them some revenue to at least cover their expenses, because we knew they might be losing some or whatever. And everybody harvested. We did some by weigh wagon and some by combine. We weren't as interested in as we were in what the actual production, but just one spacing versus another. So it was all relative if we did combine or if we did weigh wagon. But we got the results, and I'll just run through these, and I'm going to summarize them. I'm not about individual data as much as we are, but we had yields raising and unbelievably, I could go into a lot of information, but I can pull up my chart here to look at it. I had a retail operation. We had a perfect stand on my place, and they come to spray my wheat right after I had done it with Roundup and Zidua to keep the ryegrass from coming up. And they saw the canola already up, but they went across it in a 100-foot path on the end and took out part of it anyway. So it separated it from the rest of the field. And then when they desiccated the regular field, they forgot to do that. So it was high moisture, and that's my data, so I don't mind showing it, but it was in the low 20s to 30s as far as yield. And the 30-inch row was less, about 12 bushel less than the 15-inch row. In my environment, the 10-inch row was the best. And summarizing all the rest, we ran from a low on my 30-inch row of 23.2 to a high. I believe Jonathan wins that at 67.65 for a 10-inch row. The 10-inch row won in, and I don't have the Tosh data from Thomas at Ag Launch, but in 6 environments, the 10-inch row won twice. The 15-inch row won 4 times. And I would say in the Tosh rapeseed trial, the 30-inch row actually won. So that was interesting. That was not replicated, so I don't know if that was an anomaly or what. But to give you averages, the 30-inch row come out 8 bushels less than the 15-inch row, and basically the 15-inch row and 10-inch row tied as far as all over the field averages. And Dave's averages in the plots, Jonathan's was very similar. Joel's was quite a bit less because of the stand. Their field averaged more, and it was a little less in in Ballard. It was about 8 bushels less in the trial than what their other field was, and it had been replanted. So that was our results. I appreciate the partners and everybody doing it, and I'll let Dave make any comments that he wants to. I'd say this: I've worked with a lot of companies and I've worked with a lot of people. I've never. Dave's my champion. He and his wife came down here and spent all week. We went on some back roads. We had some ups, we had some downs, but I never did see the smile come off either one of their faces. And they, whatever would work, they were so accommodating. And so Ag Launch was very happy. It was kind of a run-on trial day. We put it together at the last minute, and because we wanted to see about this row spacing and about the residue management, and the fact that, as Jonathan mentioned, you know, when we did soybeans, we went about 2 rounds and then we had to fill it up again. And canola, you could run that thing all day and all night probably if you filled it up at 3 pounds to the acre. So Dave, let you have any comments, and then Joel, if you want to add anything, you can, if you're able to still be on.
Yeah, so I'll just make a few comments. Number one, we really appreciate the chance to come down there. We had a lot of fun. But I can tell you, when Tony was trying to talk me into this, I was a little bit hesitant. So, we're corn soybean guys up here, and I don't think I'd ever seen a canola seed. I knew they were small, but I did find we use precision planting stuff. We found out they have canola meters, the plate things. So it made me feel a little better. But we were a little nervous coming down, especially I knew there was going to be some heavy residue in places, and I knew we were going to probably struggle to get things dialed in, which we did a little bit, especially on your farm, Tony. With all that residue, it took us a while to get dialed in. But yeah, the other thing is, since we planted the 15s and the 10s multiple times, I was really worried about basically our row cleaners covering up what we'd already planted and, burying it. We actually had some experience doing that actually at Brent's farm up here in Iowa. We planted 15-inch soybeans on his field. It was the second farm we'd ever been on. And Brent had some really thick residue as well. And it actually turned out pretty good as well. But I was really worried about the canola seed being small, and we'd never done it before. But anyway, we enjoyed it. I'm actually pretty fired up about the opportunity. I mean, Jonathan kind of covered it in terms of, I know over the winter, there's a lot of uncertainty about canola in the Mid-South, where it might go, but with the latest RVOs and I think the 45Z stuff coming out of this bill in Washington probably is going to help canola as well. So I'm really bullish, and we're actually, we don't plant row crops up here in Iowa in the fall. There's cover crops that go in, and we'd like to get involved in that, but we'd really like the idea of coming down there in September and planting. And we actually like the idea of the nitrogen. That's why I was asking you, Jonathan, about nitrogen, because we do a lot of side dressing up here with drops, so autonomous drops. It works really good in corn, and I think it'd probably work pretty good in canola too. And so yeah, we're fired up. I think there's an opportunity for the Mid-South with canola. I've looked at the budgets for canola versus corn, soybeans, wheat. It actually looks really good. So at least for now, that could change, I guess. But we appreciate the chance to get involved in the program. Like I said, even after we came back, I was pretty nervous about things. I did hear about the 6 inches of rain, and like Tony said, when we planted the Sykeston field, it was perfect conditions. It planted perfect. It couldn't have been any better, and nothing came up. So, and then Tony, your field was by far the toughest, but so some surprises. But every year's different too. It could be completely different, next fall. But anyway, appreciate the chance to be involved.
And this is why we do trials. And I think we're more knowledgeable because of these trials. And again, I want to appreciate our cooperators. This is that we follow the Ag Launch model, and we got them some reimbursement that maybe paid them a little bit for that 8 bushel less on 30-inch rows, but we just didn't know. And if you get back to it, and the amount of seed that's used and the amount of everything, it may not be that much considerable it could be another year. We need to continue trials. But Joel, do you have any comments? Then we'll open up for questions.
No, I'd like to see what the rest of the audience has.
I was going to ask Dave, do you want to tell folks a little more about your unit? And then Drew is on here too. For those that don't know, and I'll invite you Kentucky guys up here July 8th at the Rodale Field Day. Might be worth a field trip up here. We're going to be at Rodale Institute. Got the autonomous acre running, I guess. Dave's been there testing a little bit already, and we'll have some more, hopefully, neat stuff to see there. So, Dave, if you want to
Is
tell
that connected to the Rodale Institute up in Pennsylvania?
No, this would actually be Rodale, Iowa, north of Marion, Iowa. Drew is
Okay.
farm manager there. If you want to, I'll send you
Okay.
guys a link if you're interested.
Okay.
Yeah, we're connected in that it's all the same Rodale Institute, but we have a research farm in Iowa that's doing some trials that are a little bit more specific to the rotations around here.
Okay. I
We
worked
had
with the Rodale Institute pretty closely on a hemp grant several years ago, so I'm a little bit familiar with that concept. So great.
yeah,
Go
cool.
ahead.
I was glad to hear about your hemp experience. We're curious about hemp as a fiber crop. I think it's pretty promising and has some history in Iowa too. I'll just say quickly that Dave planted into standing rye on our farm. He planted soybeans this spring in what we're dubbing the autonomous acre. So we had him plant into the standing rye, and then we rolled it a couple of weeks after when it was germinating. And where I had a good stand of rye, the beans are coming up very nicely. The machine worked great. Some of the issues with planting and standing rye is knowing where you're at in the field, but a robot has no issues with that. So it was cool to see that.
Yeah, thanks for that update, Drew. I can tell you though, the ground was really hard when I was there, and we did put some weight on it that probably helped a little bit, but we had a tough time keeping the beans getting them in the ground. But I think you had a rain a few days after that probably really
We
helped
did.
out.
Yep.
So
Yeah, they came up very nicely there. Better in the rye than they did in the tilled ground, actually.
that's interesting.
I think the moral of the story so far that we've heard, Dave, is we need to have you come plant everything because it seems like a nice rain comes about 2 or 3 days after we get
Yeah.
Yeah, related to that, we put on nitrogen, drop nitrogen 32%, and about every field we've put nitrogen on has gotten a rain within a couple of days, which you really need with dribbling it on top. But yeah, Lauren, I'll just give a quick overview. So many of you know what we're doing. We're doing autonomous, but small scale stuff. So small is relative, I guess. So we have a couple of prototypes. They both had 4-row, 30-inch row planters on. And the idea though is not to just do planting. So we built this thing in a way that it's versatile. We can take the planter off. We have a liquid system. We've put a Montag dry system on. We have a little cultivator, prototype cultivator for the organic guys. This week we're testing a plot sprayer that we're working with Iowa State on. So anyway, we're looking to put a strip till units on as well to do shallow strip till. But I'll just, the prototypes that we've had in the field we've been in the field 4 years now, is we were basically going to school. So nobody had ever done this before, no tractor, autonomous. It's not a layup to do this. It turns out it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be, but we've learned a ton over the last 4 years on how to do this. But I'll say that our prototypes are battery powered, and that is a problem for us. We love the idea of using batteries. We cannot rely on batteries though when we're planting. We can do a lot of post-emerge with batteries, spraying, side dressing. But planting, strip till is going to be a problem with batteries. So we're actually going to go to a diesel electric. So we're building a machine in the back here. It's a diesel electric. It allows us actually to go all day and to go a little bit bigger. So in the background here, you might be able to see there's a little 8-row planter. We're going to go 8-row. We're probably ultimately going to go 12 30s. And we know we're going to have to go narrow rows as well. But with diesel electric, we have the flexibility to go a little larger. Our focus is really on getting big, heavy equipment off the field and addressing things like soil compaction. But we also want to address the cost of machinery. There's some cool things you can do with small equipment. I'll just tell a quick story on how we got started. I actually came up with this concept about 10 years ago. And I read an article that talked about a guy named Bob Recker, and he did strip cropping. And I thought, man, I really like that concept. And I wonder how you could, do this in a practical way. And so, okay, we'll just make small autonomous equipment to do strip cropping. And so we've actually done some strip crop tests. Bob, I think I might have talked to you about this a few months ago, but we still love the concept of strip cropping. Anyway, little bit of a side story there, but we need to get a little. We pay attention to the economics of what we're doing, and 430s on a planter isn't economical unless we're doing on-farm trials. It works great for trials. We love it and that's mostly what we've been doing the last few years is doing on-farm trials as we're trying to figure this out. So, but to do commercial corn, soybean, canola, wheat, whatever, we have to get a little bigger and we have to be able to go all day. And that's why we're going to diesel electric. We're kind of fired up about diesel electric. And anyway, I'll stop there.
I'll keep going, but quick question I had when I heard a little about your toolbar in the background there yesterday, and are you going to be able to take regular 3-point equipment? I know previously you had a separate toolbar, but I'm familiar with Nexat, and I think that's one of their biggest misnomers. It's like just make it so you straddle the 3-point bar and hook it up and go.
Yeah, our new design with the diesel electric will allow us to do that. We cannot do it with our current design unless it's small stuff like a little cultivator. We put together a little cultivator. It's basically it's my dad's 50-year-old John Deere cultivator that we cut up and turned into a 4-row cultivator. It's more or less 3-point hitch, but to go 20 foot, 30 foot, we couldn't do that with our current design. But with our new design, we actually can do that. It's a little bit like Nextat, but a little bit different. So our goal is to get as close to plug and play as we can. Now, are we going to be able to hook up to every implement out there? Probably not, but our goal is to make it easy to use existing equipment.
Any
So
questions?
Dave, are you going to hook up to our tine weeder next week?
We would love to. Well, we won't do it next week, but we would love to do tine weeding in organic fields. Yeah, we really like the idea. It's easier than cultivating, row cultivating. So, yeah, we'd love to do that. And we with our new design, we can have flexibility on the width of those tine weeders. Right now, we would be limited to about 10 foot, but we can go bigger with our new design.
I don't know if Sean mentioned, but ours is 10 feet wide.
Is it? Yeah, the machine I'm going to bring is probably going to have a plot sprayer on it. So
oh, cool. Okay,
we won't be able to hook up to your tine. Our 3-point hitch is a customized 3-point right now, so it probably wouldn't fit. We probably couldn't just back up to your tine weeder.
I did put the link for the Rodale Field Day in the chat there if folks want. And
I will,
for you guys that might be traveling further, there is another member that has a field day the day before, about a half hour east of the Rodale deal. So if you want information on that, let me know. We'll try to make it worth your while to travel up here. So
I would say in follow up, Dave and I did some brainstorming. It's dangerous, at least on my part, but Dave's good brain. He said, "What's your number one problem down there? What could we work on?" And I think Jonathan and Joel will say this. If you asked me this time last year, I would have said by far and away slugs in soybeans, because early soybeans last year, I would say I would venture to guess 30 to maybe 50. In some cases, some farms close to 100% of early soybeans had to be replanted because of slugs. And it's all related to residue, they say, and no tillage. People come back in and disc them up and replant them and wouldn't have any problem. But so Dave worked with, he designed a project, put in a little plug ahead of time, Jonathan. He's worked with Tennessee soybean and Kentucky soybean, and may be doing a joint application next year to see if some of the tillage, Dave, what'd you call them that you was going to put on there?
Our concept was to do shallow strip till. So Yetter really would like to put their units on our machine, and we've never really, we don't do tillage for the most part, because we want to encourage less tillage for one thing, and we just don't, with battery power, we just couldn't do it. So, but we do like the idea of a shallow strip till. Actually, shortly before planting in the spring, where you, up here in Iowa, move the residue out of the way, let it warm up, dry out, maybe even put on a little bit of NPK, I don't know, and then come in. So the concept down in Tennessee, Kentucky was maybe if you move the residue out of the way in the spring, I mean, the slugs like the residue. So if they stay with the residue away from the row, maybe you help the slug problem. So that was the trial that we proposed, was to compare. We were going to compare shallow strip till with just aggressive use of row cleaners, with neither one of those, to see if either aggressive row cleaners or shallow strip till made a difference with slugs. I still love the project idea. I'd like to do something at some point with that trial.
Yeah, and Jonathan, you're familiar with Jesse Little. He's a well-respected agronomist in our area, and everybody kind of. I talked to him about it when we were talking to Dave, and he was very excited about seeing if that would work. He seemed to think you moved that residue out of the way, you wouldn't have any problem with slugs. So hopefully we'll be able to maybe be doing something like that in the future.
Well,
and he's
Tony,
right. His little unit is a good field unit, good plot unit. It's very versatile. Not practical for a large farm, probably, as he knows, but for research work, it's perfect.
were you gonna speak up, Joel?
So Tony, you know me. I'm never shy to be a contrarian, but we've drilled beans, we've planted beans with heavy aggressive row cleaners. We've primarily been planting grain into diverse cover mixes, and some years, the slugs are terrible. Some years like 25, April was pretty good conditions, but May of 25 this year, and really pretty well all the Mid-South and all the way down here to Alabama where I am. I mean, it was in Ohio, I know east was wet. So May's conditions, damp, cloudy. I mean, for another reference, there was not a single day in May this year that we took the kids to the swimming pool because it was 65 and cloudy and raining on Memorial Day. And I don't ever remember a time Memorial Day that we had to play games and cards inside because it was not fit weather to be outside. But anyway, slugs are hit and miss. But we've
It
done
wasn't near as
side by
bad this
sides.
year.
Not near as bad this year, no. But last year, you know Travis Willett there in Fancy Farm. I was doing a little bit of consulting with him and helping him dabble into cover crops and stuff, and he had a couple of fields of beans planted early in April. Initially, slugs took 80% of it, so he disked them under and replanted them. This is in 2024, mind you. Replanted them. It was 2-3 weeks later before he got to it, before it got dry enough. Slugs took them again. He disked them under again, and he about a 70% stand, and he kept it. He wouldn't roll again because clearly it wasn't working. And by the third time that he had disked it, second time he had disked it, third stand, there was no residue whatsoever. And we are in late May in Western Kentucky at that point. There were several 90-degree days, so it was hot. There was no residue, and he still lost part of that stand, 20, 30% of that stand due to slugs, the third planting in late May. And that's the first and only example I have seen, because we've battled slugs off and on for a decade. That's the only example I can point to where I saw it firsthand, where tillage did not help. And I hope that's the only time I ever see it, because that's usually been the solution is get rid of the residue, get rid of the habitat, and you'll get rid of the slugs. Because heat and sunlight and lack of residue on the soil will help slugs 9 times out of 10, but it's not foolproof, as observed
He may
last
have
year
had some
by me.
hybrids.
Yeah, I don't know what he's got. Well, I know I've got a hot take, and it's not that hot, maybe not on this call, but I think we're overusing insecticides tremendously, and we're removing a lot of our beneficial insects, because it doesn't take very many ladybugs or ground beetles or spiders or a dozen other beneficial insects to obliterate slugs. Slugs have no defense mechanism. They don't have a shell. They don't have teeth. Any beneficial insect worth its salt can obliterate a slug population. But the thing that Travis was doing last year was Beck's beans, and you can't get Beck's beans without insecticide. And it was insecticide every single time. So I think he was, and 20 years of every year getting insecticide too on seed treatments and foliars will drastically limit your beneficial insects. And I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot and paving the way for slugs to steamroll us, by removing beneficial insects from the ecosystem in a sufficient quantity to control the slugs. But that's my 2 cents. It doesn't really help with an autonomous planter, but I think that's the best strategy for slugs that we're going to explore moving forward.
Well, to bring that full circle, a question I had, canola, are you seeing any slug issues on there, especially when you're streaming on UAN?
Not in the fall. Falls are typically really dry. Been seem to be the last, 4 or 5 years. We're more likely to be in a D3 drought than we are to get 3 inches of rain in September. So the dry and hot conditions are not conducive to slugs. So no, that has not been an observed issue in slugs or wheat or cover crops in the fall. There's other problems in the fall, but slugs have never been one of them that I've ever heard of even.
And I haven't heard of any issues with armyworms in them. I know sometimes that's a worry in wheat, but,
Right.
But no.
What about aphids? Have you had any aphids?
I noticed
I hadn't seen any.
I know that there is something. Shoot, what's it called? I have to think about it. There's some kind of insect that'll bring it. It'll bring.
Is it a potato leafhopper?
Maybe so. It'll make a few of the plants look kind of crazy looking, and they won't throw pods on. But I've never sprayed an insecticide in the fall on any of that stuff. And you may see a plant or two, but it's nothing yield limiting.
Not above an economic threshold for certain.
Yeah, so I've never really worried about it, but no, I mean they're really basically kind of plan it and forget it until March it's been their solution or their philosophy on it.
Plan it and pray for rain.
Yeah.
And a mild winter.
And
Well,
what I say is, there's nothing that they dock for now.
Now.
Yeah.
Moisture.
Put it on another 100,000 acres and we'll find out.
That'd be moisture. That's going to be the biggest thing.
Yeah,
That's where
keeping it wet enough in harvest is hard. Seems to be you can't get it out even if you're trying your darndest. Can't get it out above 6%.
And they won't take it. That's one thing I don't think we talked about. They won't take it if it's above 10% moisture. That is the threshold. And so it's got to be bone dry. And it's amazing how much yield you'll lose from 10 bushel or 10% moisture to 5. So
Yep. And another way to state that, Jonathan, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Yeah, or not even that. I mean, yeah.
Yep. You wait 6 hours that, on a big field to one side, because you're cutting it 2 miles per hour, depending on your setup. So by the front of a field to the back of a field, you might lose 5% in moisture. And how many bushels do you think that is? I hadn't talked to Dad close enough to guess,
I would venture to guess you're losing 3 or 4 bushel at least.
We need to do a trial next year, Jonathan. Just leave a strip, in a good laying area, harvest it at 10 o'clock. And then when you're done or whenever you start, harvest it, document the moisture, come back at the end of the day to that next strip over and see how much weight you lose side by side just with time of harvest.
Has anyone looked at using one of the automated conditioning systems in the bin with
We don't
temperature
bin
and
it.
humidity?
Nobody.
No, that's right.
does it.
Yeah, you said that.
Yep.
And it's
But
really
that
hard.
would be a very valuable thing if you were binning it. Very.
It's really hard though, from what I understand, is why nobody's really done it yet. But they say you can't fill a bin up very full just because it's so
Density layer.
dense.
Yep.
You just can't you can't get enough air through it.
Well,
For our
Static pressure.
bins.
it
So-
flows like water too, doesn't it?
Yes.
It flows. It'll move. Yep. You can't load a truck full like you would with wheat
Yep.
or corn or beans or anything.
You
And
can
you
load
got a roll of duct tape, right? Most people would.
one thing we have not really had to worry about. The only thing I've taped is my grain cart. The tractor
Same.
at the bottom, and then
Yep.
And I didn't even do it this year, but I need to probably do it where the auger folds over and just kind of seal that crack a little bit. But the combine, I mean, you lose most of it at the header. That's the biggest thing. Header
Shatter.
loss. So
I was gonna say, I noticed the videos I saw, you had the canola auger and all that on. Any other special attachments you had
that's it. And you don't have to have that, but it helps significantly, especially when it's like that crop was standing really good. And so I literally had the reel as high up as I could just to get it out of the way. And that auger is just there to keep it from flipping it over the back of the header. But it does a good job when it's a good even stand to feed it evenly, and then it helps it process it through the combine really evenly too. So
How fast are you driving on average, Johnson?
I told Ricky to stay at 2.5, no faster, because that's one thing. Last year, a neighbor of mine, they were running 3 combines, and he had one that they slowed down to 2.5, and he said he could tell on the yield monitor from the shared coverage map in the combines they were making 8 to 10 bushels more. So he told his other combines to slow down, and it picked up. And so that's 2.5 mile an hour is where we ran the whole time.
With the reel that aids in feeding it in. Because
Yeah.
we're usually about 2 or 2.5 without it but I guess that's a Lexion combine and a MacDon versus a deer and a deer header.
What's your limiting factor at that point? Cleaning or what's?
No, it's just you're losing so much. I mean, of course, we were in some good canola, so we're running the 770, and it had all she wanted in places. I mean, we hit some spots in the field doing 80, 90 bushel canola, and so it's all it wanted. But and that's at like 5% moisture too. But I think the biggest thing is you're running slower just to keep it just to let it feed as even as it possibly can. You're not trying to move it very fast so that you don't lose too much at the header. I know my John Deere guys were saying they were helping a neighbor get set up, and his cutter bar was pretty dull, and they noticed a pretty bad issue with header loss just because it was shaking it out of the pods before we could get it onto the draper. So they ended up going and he swapped his cutter bar out, and that helped a lot. So that's something we'll probably look at next year before we get started, is making sure ours are all in good shape and maybe even replacing them, preemptively. So.
I'm gonna keep the line open here, but I see we got a few guys starting to drop off, so I do want to tell you guys the third Friday of the month there, I'm working on getting Jack from Micro MGX, the onion extract for burn down. And then next month, the Tuesday night meeting like we're doing now, that'll be grain weevil. So just a heads up, I didn't want to, before we start
This will
losing.
be a good tie-in, but I'd like Joel to talk about what he's doing now. Joel's a